Good morning, everyone. Today I want to talk about a woman with no friends, not as a symbol of weakness, nor as a subject of pity, but as a reflection of strength, resilience, and a reality many silently face. There is a common misconception in society that being alone means being lonely, especially when it comes to women. From a young age, women are often taught that their worth is linked to their relationships, how many friends they have, how well they fit in, how socially accepted they are. So when a woman walks alone, when she isn't constantly surrounded by a group, people begin to assume that something must be wrong. She must be lonely. She must be unhappy. But that assumption couldn't be further from the truth. Solitude and loneliness are not the same. Loneliness is a feeling of being disconnected, even in a room full of people. It is the ache of not being understood, not being seen, or not being truly valued. Solitude, on the other hand, is a conscious choice, a space of calm, of reflection, of self-connection. It is the ability to sit in silence and not feel empty. It is walking through life without the constant need for validation or approval from others. A woman who embraces solitude often does so because she has learned the value of her own company. She knows that peace is not something found in the noise of others, but in the stillness within herself. She is not lonely, she is focused. She is not excluded, she is intentional. Her alone time becomes her reset button, her sanctuary, her place to heal, dream, and think freely. And in that solitude, she may discover things that are harder to find in a crowd: clarity, confidence, and the freedom to truly be herself without compromise. She doesn't fill her time just to stay distracted. She uses it to grow, to observe, to realign with her values. While others may chase constant interaction to avoid the discomfort of silence, she welcomes it, because in that silence she finds strength. To mistake her solitude for sadness is to misunderstand her entirely. She may not have a crowd around her, but she has something far more powerful: self-awareness, peace of mind, and a life that is not built around pleasing others, but around honoring herself. In a world that often rewards surface-level charm and social popularity, it can be easy to assume that having many friends is a sign of happiness, while having few or none is a sign of deficiency. But for some women, particularly those who've been through betrayal, manipulation, or constant emotional exhaustion, the decision to step back from certain relationships is not a failure, it's an act of self-respect. A woman with no friends may not be friendless by accident. She may be selective, not because she thinks she's better than others, but because she's learned, often through painful experiences, that not everyone deserves access to her world. Being selective is a form of wisdom, not arrogance. It's the result of lessons that taught her how costly it can be to surround yourself with the wrong people. She may have once been the kind of woman who gave endlessly, her time, her energy, her trust. She might have shown up for people who never showed up for her, kept secrets for people who gossiped about her, or supported friends who disappeared when she needed them most. And so she learned. She learned that not every smiling face is a true friend. She learned that being liked by everyone often means losing pieces of herself. She realized that she had to choose herself, even if that meant walking away from people who couldn't treat her with the same love and loyalty she offered them. Being selective also means she no longer entertains half-hearted friendships, where the connection is based more on convenience than care. She no longer tries to force conversations, fit into cliques, or pretend to enjoy relationships that feel shallow or one-sided. She has realized that peace is more important than popularity, that honesty is more valuable than approval. Her selectiveness is also a reflection of her growth. She may have redefined what friendship means to her, no longer interested in people who only show up for fun, but those who show up with depth, consistency, and sincerity. And until she finds those rare connections, she's content being alone. To many, her circle may look empty, but in truth, it's just not crowded, because she knows. It's better to walk alone with integrity than to stand in a crowd that doesn't truly see or support her. Her selectiveness is not a wall, it's a filter, a way to protect the space she's finally learned to value. Her mind, her heart, and her energy. In a society where numbers often seem to define worth, how many likes you get, how many followers you have, how many people you can call your friends, it's easy to forget that more isn't always better. For a woman who appears to have no friends, the truth may not be that she has none, but that she has chosen quality over quantity. Conscious, empowered decision to prioritize real, meaningful connections over social clutter. She may have once had a crowd around her. She may have been the life of the party, the one whose phone never stopped ringing, whose calendar was always full. But over time, she may have realized that being surrounded by people isn't the same as being truly connected to them. She might have felt emotionally alone, even in groups, as if she was constantly performing pantomime, pretending to be fine, pretending to fit in, pretending that surface-level banter was enough to sustain her soul. So she stopped pretending. She began to strip away the noise. She started asking herself difficult but necessary questions. Who actually knows me? Who supports me without conditions? Who listens, truly listens when I speak? And when the answers were few or even none, she began to let go. Letting go didn't mean failure. It meant clarity. It meant that she no longer needed dozens of people around her just to feel seen. She no longer needed the illusion of friendship to avoid feeling alone. What she needed and now seeks is depth. Someone who remembers the little things. Someone who shows up when it's inconvenient. Someone who celebrates her quietly, not just publicly. Those kinds of relationships don't come in bulk. They are rare, slow-forming, and rooted in mutual understanding. Choosing quality also means she's willing to go without for a while. She's patient enough to wait for authentic friendships rather than forcing connections just to fill a void. She understands that it's better to sit in silence with someone who gets her than laugh loudly with people who don't really care. She's not interested in being liked by everyone. She's interested in being loved by the right few. This mindset shift is powerful. It's what turns loneliness into intentional solitude. It's what transforms isolation into discernment. And it's what allows her to build a life surrounded eventually by people who matter, people who add value, and people who align with who she truly is, not who she's expected to be. Her world may be quieter now, but it's richer, because she knows something many still have to learn. That 10 shallow connections can't compare to one person who truly understands your soul. And for that kind of connection, she's willing to wait, protect her energy, and choose with care. There is a unique kind of strength that often goes unnoticed. The strength of a woman who walks alone, not because she has no other option, but because she chooses to. This strength is frequently misread, misunderstood, even misjudged. Society is quick to label her as cold, difficult, antisocial, or bitter, when in truth, she may be one of the strongest individuals you'll ever meet. Why? Because it takes immense courage to stand apart when the world pushes conformity. It takes real power to break away from the crowd and choose authenticity over acceptance. She doesn't move with the herd, not because she can't, but because she doesn't want to lose herself in it. And that choice to prioritize self-respect, peace, and truth is what many misunderstand as weakness, when it's actually resilience in its purest form. People often assume strength looks like bold speeches, big personalities, or unshakable confidence in social situations. But the woman with no friends possesses a quieter kind of strength, the kind that doesn't seek recognition or applause. Hers is the strength of self-restraint when provoked, the strength of silence when she could have spoken out in anger, the strength of detachment of walking away from places and people that no longer serve her, the strength of rebuilding herself from the inside out without needing a spotlight to prove she's doing just fine. She may have been misunderstood because she doesn't overshare. She doesn't post her pain online or wear her wounds for sympathy. She processes her emotions in private. And that alone, in a world obsessed with constant expression, can be unsettling to others. They don't know what she's thinking. They can't read her easily, so they assume she must be bitter, hard to reach, or somehow broken. But really, she's just protecting what's sacred, her energy, her story, her growth. What many fail to see is that this woman has probably weathered storms in silence. She's had to be her own source of comfort, her own motivator, her own protector. She's taught herself how to sit with grief, how to manage disappointment, how to find purpose, even in moments of complete aloneness. And still, she rises, gracefully, steadily, without needing the world to cheer her on. This is a kind of emotional independence that threatens the norms. Because a woman who doesn't seek validation, who doesn't rely on popularity to feel whole, challenges the way society measures worth. Her solitude forces others to confront their own discomfort with being alone. Her self-sufficiency disrupts the narrative that a woman's value lies in her relationships, her role as a nurturer, or her social status. But what they miss is that her strength isn't cold. It's warm, just fiercely guarded. It isn't distant. It's discerning. She's not pushing people away. She's just refusing to shrink herself to make others comfortable. Her strength doesn't scream, it whispers. It shows up in boundaries. It shows up in the quiet confidence of someone who knows they're enough, with or without company. To misunderstand her is easy. To truly see her, to respect her, requires a different lens. One that can recognize that the woman walking alone is not lost. She's just walking a path few are brave enough to take. Behind every woman who keeps her distance, who sits in the back quietly, who doesn't seem to reach out or join in, there is usually a story. Not always loud or dramatic, but deeply personal. A story of healing, a journey of rebuilding. A chapter where the lesson was this: not everyone deserves access to me. A woman with no friends isn't always avoiding people. She's often protecting herself. She's been through relationships that drained her, situations that tested her, and moments that taught her the high cost of letting just anyone too close. Somewhere along the way, she learned that being open doesn't mean being vulnerable to everyone. She learned that boundaries aren't barriers, they're shields, they're acts of self-love. Perhaps she once let everyone in. Perhaps she once said yes out of guilt, kept quiet to avoid conflict, gave too much just to be accepted. Maybe she once mistook attention for affection or company for care. And perhaps that left her feeling invisible even when surrounded by people. A strange kind of loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from not being understood while in the presence of others. So she changed. She began the slow, often painful process of healing. Not the kind that's linear or glamorous, but the kind that happens in silence. In the late nights spent reflecting, in the mornings where she forces herself to choose peace over people-pleasing, in the moments where she says no, even when it makes her seem distant. Through healing, she developed boundaries, not to push people away, but to create space for those who truly value her presence. These boundaries aren't meant to keep the world out, but to protect her from repeating patterns that once made her feel small. She no longer entertains energy that leaves her depleted. She no longer gives the benefit of the doubt when her gut says otherwise. She no longer sacrifices her well-being just to keep someone else comfortable. These boundaries come from wisdom, not bitterness. They are the result of knowing what it took to survive, what it cost to recover, and what it means to truly protect your peace. It's not that she doesn't want connection. She just refuses to compromise her healing for the sake of companionship. This kind of healing also brings clarity. She starts to see people for who they are, not who she wishes they were. She no longer chases closure from those who hurt her, because she knows closure comes from within. She's learned that silence is sometimes the best response, and walking away is sometimes the most loving thing she can do for herself. The woman with no friends may not be bitter. She's just cautious. She may not be lonely. She's just deeply aware of what she needs and what she won't tolerate. Her healing journey has rewired the way she interacts with the world. She isn't afraid to be alone, because she knows what it's like to feel alone around the wrong people, and she'll never go back to that again. So when she draws a line, it's not rejection, it's self-preservation. When she chooses silence, it's not indifference, it's discernment. And when she keeps her circles small or empty, it's not because she doesn't value others. It's because she finally values herself enough to be intentional with who she lets in. When people see a woman who is often alone, who doesn't seem to have a social circle, who quietly moves through life without the background noise of friendship groups or constant companionship, the knee-jerk reaction is often pity. People assume she's lonely, maybe even broken or somehow incomplete. They view her solitude as a flaw, as something to be fixed. But what if, instead of pity, what she actually deserves is respect? What if her life, the way she carries herself, the way she chooses herself, is not something to mourn, but something to admire? There is a quiet defiance in a woman who chooses to walk through the world without clinging to others for identity or self-worth. A kind of rebellion against a culture that defines women by their roles in relationships, as friends, lovers, supporters, caretakers. This woman defies the expectation that she must always be giving, socializing, accommodating. She reclaims her time, her voice, her presence. And that's not sad, it's inspiring. She teaches us that strength isn't always loud, that healing doesn't always need an audience. That self-respect sometimes means standing alone, rather than shrinking to be accepted by the crowd. She shows that validation doesn't need to come from applause or inclusion, it can come from within. And that kind of self-possession, it's rare, it's bold, it's beautiful. The world often overlooks the lessons a woman like this can offer. She reminds us to evaluate the relationships we maintain. Are they meaningful or just familiar? Are they nurturing us or just filling space? She challenges the idea that busy social calendars equal happiness and instead invites us to think about presence, intention, and emotional authenticity. This woman is proof that solitude can be empowering, that silence can be wise, that space can be sacred. She's not trying to prove anything to anyone. She's not performing for the world. She's simply living on her own terms, guided by her own truth. That in itself is a radical act of self-love in a world that constantly tells women to seek approval, to stay connected at all costs, to keep smiling even when their hearts are heavy. To pity her is to misunderstand her. To assume she is missing out is to overlook what she has gained. Peace, clarity, autonomy, and the profound realization that her value is not determined by how many people surround her, but by how deeply she knows and honors herself. She doesn't want attention, she wants authenticity. She doesn't crave popularity, she craves peace. And in a society that fears loneliness, she's found something even more powerful. Freedom, she may walk alone, yes, but not in sadness, not in defeat. She walks with intention, grace, and quiet power. That's not a woman to feel sorry for. That's a woman to learn from. So when you see a woman who stands alone, who walks through life without a visible circle, who speaks with calm conviction but keeps her distance, don't rush to label her. Don't assume she's broken or lost or lacking. Look a little deeper. You may just be witnessing the kind of woman this world needs more of. A woman who has learned that solitude is not a curse, but a sanctuary. A woman who has chosen authenticity over approval. A woman who holds her peace like armor and wears her truth like a crown. She is not lonely. She is not bitter. She is not invisible. She is simply someone who stopped chasing the noise and started listening to her own voice. And in that silence, she found herself. That's not weakness. That's not failure. That is strength in its rarest form.